Hello, everybody.
Hello. Linda, is your computer acting okay now?
It's all right. Yes, yes. Fingers crossed. Yes.
Is it misbehaving today, Linda?
Well, I tried to, my Microsoft needs to be, I need to do an upgrade and, which means it won't upgrade until I upgrade the operating system on my MacBook. And yeah, the upgrade wouldn't fully go through. So Becky counseled me that maybe there's not enough space. So I have to do a little more research. Fingers crossed right now. Things are operating well.
Good, good. Okay, so it looks like we have a quorum of the select board. I'm Melissa. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. The Shutesbury Selectboard. Today is March 1st, 2022. So the first thing, as we always do, is I'm going to just go through the agenda. We'll have public comment for anybody who is here who would like to make public comment. Then go through minutes. Linda, what do we have? How many?
Actually, we don't have any because
we don't have any minutes
last week, so I'm not quite there.
Great.
So next time there'll be you know, two.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd seen anything from you. So
yeah.
All right.
No, I was wondering too.
Yeah. It was this Wednesday, so it's like, oh
yeah. At 6 o'clock, we're going to have the Finance Committee, Select Board will meet with the Finance Committee and the Personnel Board to look at cost of living adjustment for this upcoming fiscal year. We have a disclosure request from Miriam Defant, who's the Concom chair. We're going to talk about the Energy and Climate Change Committee candidates and the process of getting those appointments done. Talk about town meeting. Talk about the, we had put on our list on Becky's and kind of our work list to review the building committee charge, and we'll talk about that process tonight. And then you said we have no minutes, right? We have an appointment to the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee, Council on Aging grant, and town administrator updates. Is there anything else that I have neglected to mention that we need to do tonight? Anything unanticipated?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. Well, let me know as we go through. So we now have the floor open for public comments. I would ask that you use the raise hand feature, although we don't have very many people here, but still it's easier for me if you are here from the public and would like to make a comment, so I see a couple of hands. Miriam, I saw yours first, so we'll go with Miriam, and then I think that's Steve is after you.
Thanks. This may have already been addressed at a different meeting that I wasn't at, but the Historical Commission had made a recommendation to have Leslie Bracebridge appointed as an associate commissioner, and I don't know if the select board had considered that yet.
I think we did it at the last meeting. Linda,
We
could
didn't.
you?
No.
No.
Oh, then it's unanticipated. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so we could put that on a little late, fit that in. Thanks,
great.
thanks, Miriam. We will take
Thank you
care of
very
that.
much.
Okay, Steve, I see your hand.
Yeah, hi, Steve Sullivan, Wendell Road, member of the school committee, the capital planning and the buildings committee. And I just want to, I heard that on the agenda, you're going to be looking at the charge for the buildings committee. And I'd just like to, I've got a question / prompt for you that at our last school committee, Shutesbury School Committee meeting, and that was 2 weeks ago. And then last week at the buildings committee, the question has come up of who is responsible for horizontal versus vertical construction and repairs. And the school committee would really like an answer to that as soon as possible. And so I just thank you for your work and carry on.
Okay, thanks. I'll make a note of that, Steve. So you're referring to things such as site, what might be constituted as like site work
Well,
versus like,
sidewalks and parking lots versus
Okay.
siding and windows and doors
Yeah.
and that type.
okay,
Buildings are considered vertical and roadways, paving, parking lots are considered horizontal.
okay. And I don't, okay, we'll talk a little bit about that. You know, it's going to be a very general discussion this evening about the charge for the building committee, but then I think at the next meeting, we'll get into kind of more the nitty gritty, but that's a great question. Okay, any other comments from the
Yes.
public?
I see one.
Mary
from
Lou? Yep, Mary Lou?
Hi. So I just have a general question, and I'm very not knowing about how funds are moved or where they're kept, etc. But I was just made aware that there's I think it's called free cash flow, and wondering how, as a town, that can be used for the elementary school. And my understanding is the elementary school needs the roof fixed and something about the ventilation. So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, so I think you probably recall, Mary Lou, we don't typically during public comment period engage in a back and forth, but we'll note your questions, and I would, you know, maybe either in an email or sending it to the finance committee could talk about the, you know, how funds get allocated. So rather
Right.
than-
Okay.
Okay,
So,
but thank you for your question.
yes, you're welcome. It's actually a two-part.
Yep,
So once that question is answered and the particular amount that that I've been turned on to, okay, I guess it's all the same thing. It will all be answered in the same question. Thank you. Yep.
okay, you're
Okay.
welcome.
Bye.
Bye. Any other questions? Steve, you're back. Okay.
I'm back. If Mary Lou is still here, I just wanted to let her know that the gym roof piece is already underway and it will be done it should be done by April 22nd, or whenever the end of the April vacation is. And the drainage work and stuff for that has already happened. So they're just waiting for the materials and no one to be in the school and the materials going. And so that's going to be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Steve, for that update. Okay, anybody else for public comment? So I'm just going to do a time check here. We're going to have the 3-board meeting at 6 o'clock, but maybe we could take up the appointment of Leslie Bracebridge unanticipated. That makes sense. We have 5 minutes. So does somebody want to make a motion to appoint Leslie Bracebridge as an associate member of the Historical Commission? Is that
So moved.
accurate? Okay.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? We all know Leslie has a depth of knowledge way beyond probably anybody else in town about all things historic in Shutesbury. So it's great to have her willing to contribute her time. I see a hand up. Is this having to do with what we're discussing right now? Diane?
No, it has to do with the school roof.
Okay, well, we're beyond that now. So we can come back, circle back, but so do I hear all those in favor of Leslie Bracebridge as an associate member of the Historical
Makes Fiso-
Commission?
Makes Fiso O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Carol, aye. I don't think Leslie is with us, but Miriam, we'll let her know and you can let her know too.
Well.
So we're beyond public comment. I'll give you a couple of minutes, Diane, since we have a couple of minutes. Is there something you wanted to do during public?
Yeah, I'll be quick. I'm excited to hear from Shannon's dad that the roof on the gym is being replaced. It's in process. However, I understand that the rest of the roof of the building also needs to be replaced. And I'm wondering if that's happening now.
That has been it's been in process for a long time. So rest assured, nobody's been ignoring the fact that the rest of the roof needs to be replaced on the elementary school. We're not going to go into that now.
I
It's
just
not on
wanted
our
to
agenda.
clarify that with the gym being finished, the roof project is not going to be finished.
We understand.
Okay, no, I just want to be clear.
We do know that. Okay, so we are now awaiting. Becky, can you tell me who's going to be here for the?
We're gonna have the Personnel Board. They're starting to roll in. Finance Committee, we have 2 members in attendance so far. And the Select Board.
Okay. So we're expecting
We're
a
expecting-
quorum of those committees. Will they be
Yes.
calling themselves to order? If they have a
Yes,
quorum?
they're all legally posted and I would imagine they will do that.
Okay. I don't know who Joseph is.
I
Is
believe
that-
that's Joe Salvador.
Okay.
So we just have April so far, well, April and Melissa
Mhm.
for the Personnel
From the-
Board. So we're
Bob
waiting for,
Bob and Jim are here from Finance Committee.
yeah. And we're waiting for Peg Ross, Melody, Chartier, and George Arvanitis are the rest of the Personnel Board.
Okay,
And they are also members of the Finance Committee. And we're also looking for AJ and Jim Walton, and we have Jim Hemingway and Susie Mosier. And I missed somebody. It's 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Excuse me.
Do we want to go over that appointment for Art Keen while we're waiting for people to show up?
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
Susie just arrived.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to appoint Art Keen to the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, any discussion? I don't know Art, you know. Assume he's somebody who lives at the lake.
he does have the lake. I believe he's the head of the Lake Wyola Association now. So
Okay.
he's sort of a welcome link to the whole process there.
Okay, okay, great. So all those in favor of Art Keen being appointed to the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee, please signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
And Farrell, aye. So we're waiting on Jim. How many do we have the Personnel Committee? George isn't here yet either, right?
Yeah, we don't have a quorum and George is
Okay.
doing the presentation, so.
Okay. Do you have the presentation, Becky? Are you going to be sharing it?
I was gonna let George do it just because he was doing things to it I hadn't seen before.
Okay.
Here he
So
is.
you'll make
coming
him a
now.
co-host?
Yeah. Where did he go?
He's coming in.
There.
I got him for you, Becky.
There
Thank
he
you.
is.
And here's Melody.
You got her?
Yeah. Are you able to make Georgia? No, I think I need to do it.
No, you're the host, so you have to give out co-host ability.
There he goes.
I don't see Jim here. Does somebody want to call the Finance Committee to order? Do you guys have a backup?
I can call the Finance Committee meeting to order,
Okay, thank you,
Thank you,
Susie.
Susie.
6:01.
And we have enough people from the Personnel Committee.
Mhm.
Yep. Somebody want to call the Personnel Committee to order? Is that you, Peg?
Yep, that's me. We're calling the Personnel Committee to order.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so what we are going to be talking tonight is the proposed FY23 cost of living adjustment. And I know George and the Personnel Committee and have been doing a lot of work on this, and maybe you can give us a little bit of an overview and kind of where we stand. I don't know if you've been to the Finance Committee, or if this is the first time the Finance Committee members who are not on the Personnel Committee are seeing this. But if you want to go ahead and just give us the broad brush, George, and then launch into the and the Personnel Committee.
Well, actually, I was wondering if I could start with some of the rationale for what we're proposing for the a market alignment for FY23. George has done a magnificent job with
Yes, yeah.
with the spreadsheet that you'll look at, but just
Great.
sort of the overview is that we've listed 8 purposes for why we are proposing this market alignment increases, and are they on the screen share? That essentially that we need to pay the market value for employee retention. That was one. That we need to pay market value to attract quality job applicants. That we will need to pay market for anybody who leaves or retires. And by aligning with the market, it saves the cost of potential turnover. There's a limited pool of labor for some of the specialized municipal positions. Many towns are contracting out for services third party for much, much higher rates to cover benefits and costs, administrative costs and profit. And there is currently a labor shortage. And the last market alignment study was done almost 10 years ago in 2013. And the total budget increase would be, and this is something that we will talk about, is $37,785 before COLA. And if this increases, it will match the average rate for each position instead of the $21,925 proposed. And this is what George is going to be able to explain with all of his brilliant spreadsheet.
I'm just going to illustrate it. You can do the explaining.
Yeah,
just gonna
that's
show-
also, George, that's also on the spreadsheet, right? The things.
Yeah,
that-
so it's okay if I take the screen then?
Yes, please do.
So the first thing I'm going to show is last year, as everyone is aware, we developed, April, before we jump into the market alignment, I thought, first of all, I'd show the COLA, the general COLA for everybody, because that's a part of the
Yep.
market alignment. So I think I sent this to Jim Walton, but I don't recall that he sent it to the Finance Committee. But I do know that last week I updated the Finance Committee on the results of this. Before we look at the results, this is what is the agreed upon policy. We all voted for it last year. It's in our minutes. And so this is the spreadsheet that we can use year over year, whether it's me or anybody else. We can just, I made this as the template. So everybody should first maybe take a quick read here. Essentially, we agreed on a CPI index to use based on New England. For New England consumers, we decided that we would take a 3-year rolling average. And for any individual year, we would never use less than 1%. So last year, 2021, the inflation number came out to 0.69. We use 1% in the formula. This year, as you can imagine, inflation is higher than 4%. Our max limit is 4%. The only other things to note in the policy is we round to the nearest hundredth decimal place. And, you know, we're going the personnel board is going to review this process every 3 years. And in extraordinary times, we did have a hatch here that allowed us as 3 committees to override whatever this comes out to. But, you know, that's obviously is going to take something extraordinary to get us all to agree to that to make that particular move. So what we decided is our source would be this one right here, all items in New England, urban consumers. This is the code on it. So I went and looked it up. I pasted it here. And you can see we decided we're going to be doing this every February. So we're going to use the January index information. So these are the indexes. We used this January column last year. We used 21, 20, and 19, and we calculated the average. I forget what it was, but we came up with the average, and that's what last year's COLA was. This year, we're going to use 20, 21, and 22. So 105, 105.6, and 112.6. And that's the calculation here. Those are the 3 numbers that you see. And all these numbers are essentially what's on the CPI. And so the calculation of the change year to year are these numbers. And under our policy with those 2 limits that we talked about, and given the extraordinary years we're in, we got wild fluctuations in inflation. This is our average across the 3 years. So this is what we're recommending as the COLA. This is what this schedule under our policy indicates that the COLA should be for the current, for the upcoming fiscal year. Any questions? The one thing I would point out about this method is there will be lags in periods of high inflation where the employee pay increases might increase slower than inflation. But when inflation levels off, then your subsequent pay increases would be higher than inflation.
Right. Yep.
And the opposite holds true in declining inflation periods. But we put these controls in here, these limits in here for obvious reasons. So that's for pretty much the rank and file. It excludes, of course, it would exclude contracted positions.
I see AJ's hand up and then Becky.
Yeah, George, quick, just clarification. Would there be any reason to think that January would be as the sort of month that we're isolating in each year? Like, are there any sort of typical sort of seasonal patterns, not having looked at this closely before, that
You're
might
right.
make January not like reflective of sort of typical patterns? It doesn't look like it, but
Yeah, well, that's
was
a good
just wondering.
question. Right. If you look at this, you can see it doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, okay.
And for us, you know, the timing of the budget, we could wait until February because annual town meeting is May. But in a typical year where annual town meeting is April, it would be kind of hard for
Right.
us to.
Yeah, okay.
go too far.
Close.
But it is interesting when you, well, all right, I won't get into it, but
Okay.
Becky?
Oh, I was just going to say, most of the contracted employees have language in their contracts saying they will receive the same as the increase as determined annually. Just so you know.
I see Jim has his hand up.
George, does this apply to salaried employees as well?
It's all town employees who aren't under contract, and even the ones under contract, I guess, are affected.
For the most part, not all.
You know, Jim, you recall year after year, we used to have the meetings where our three departments got together, and we
Yeah.
would try to come up with a pay increase. And we decided last year that it was probably wise, kind of like what's going on at the region. Let's just come up with a method and live with it. We can evaluate it periodically. And so this is the method, and it impacts those same people that we were negotiating in those other years.
Yes, I remember that, that deliberation.
Bob?
You're muted, Bob.
Yeah, George, I just want to point out, which I'm sure you're aware, but just make it clear to the group that the fluctuations are being averaged over time with this method. So picking a month doesn't really affect the outcome. All the values will be averaged in. Isn't that so with this method?
It would be tiny. It would be very
Yeah.
small.
Right, because you get the annual increase at a certain time. It's a snapshot, right?
Yes.
Thanks.
Susie?
I really appreciate the streamlined process that this is going to generate. And I believe that the guardrails and the thinking that went into it are appropriate for our town. And I just want to say I appreciate that work.
Absolutely. And George, thanks for coming up with a
Well, we did this
formula.
together last year. I think the personnel board did this as a group.
Yeah, but we needed.
But
we
you
needed
did the mechanics.
Yes.
What I do.
We did the policy, but you did the mechanics. So,
Yeah, that's
and
what I do, you know.
That's a
that
big,
just-
Yeah,
a big contribution.
they're
Yeah.
important for the board, for the personnel board as well. It's been incredibly helpful to be able to see this stuff right in front of us.
Well, and you know, I did want to create something that we could use year after year. So I think this template, we can just take it and it's easy enough just to add the year and redo the calculation.
AJ, did you have another comment?
Yeah,
And then Eric after that.
Sorry, just a quick one. Becky, could you just clarify which would be the town employees whose contracts would not track with this calculation here? So that I'm assuming that's police department and schools, or?
Police department, schools, and this year only the town administrator. Well, this year
Okay.
and last year.
Okay, so those are the exemptions. Everybody else will have a COLA increase that's determined by this formula. Okay, thank you.
Eric?
That was my question. So that AJ beat me to it.
So let's go back to what April was talking about. I'm gonna bring up another spreadsheet. Everybody can see this market alignment spreadsheet. So these are the points that April was covering.
The source for this too, I don't know, we don't have the source right there. It's up. The source with this was the FERCog wage and salary chart that they hand out to all the towns. So
Yeah, we
that's
should
the
have all
basis.
received, we all received one in December that's for the current fiscal year. And that's what this analysis that we're going to look at down below is based on. It's the current one.
So they, FERCog does a survey of every one of the 26 municipalities and then publishes that. Okay.
Minus Orange, we did not consider Orange, Greenfield, or
Montague.
Montague. Yes,
Right.
that's right.
Excludes
So
Greenfield.
you pulled out the
Montgomery.
larger, like the 3 largest.
Yeah, not.
Yes,
too
pretty
bad.
much the cities. Well, maybe not the cities, but.
Yeah.
But anyways, there they are. And we had the rates for all the, for the different positions that we're going to be talking about today. And then we just took averages, but we're jumping ahead because I think April, did you want to address these again, April, and just go over it again?
Yeah, let's go over it again. I think I jumped the gun, but we really were looking very closely at, aligning our professional, our salaries for town employees with the market. So we're trying to, for FY23. And it's really, this took a lot of discussion, a lot of thought at the committee, and we did come up with these 8 different points. And essentially, it's like people, it's hard to find people who are qualified for the positions in this town, for municipalities, that it's really important to pay the market value in order to retain employees. And to attract quality job applicants. And it saves costs with turnover. Anytime somebody leaves their position, there's training, there's lack of efficiency, and that costs the town. There's also, again, there's a limited pool of who is qualified to be a town assessor, for example, or a town accountant or treasurer. It's very specialized positions. And for a number of these positions, the towns contract out for those services. So, rather than having an in-house accountant or assessor or treasurer, that they're contract.
Oh, we lost you, April. Or is that me?
No, Becky, there's a few people that have frozen.
I don't hear her as well.
April, we can't hear you. Can you hear us? No. What's
The log out and log in solution?
I'm here.
Oh,
should I do that?
We
Yeah,
lost.
April, are you there? Can you hear us?
Let me log out.
No, you're fine.
Yeah,
Now
we
you
can hear
know.
you now. I can hear you now.
Now we
My-
can.
It said that my internet was unstable, and we'll discuss that at our next session.
Is the MLP manager on this? No.
I don't know.
actually, a few of you are locked up.
Goddamn internet.
We're going to have to talk about that. But essentially, it costs money. You have to pay for quality employees, and for us to contract out for certain positions, which is what a number of municipalities do. They're contracting with a for-profit assessors organization who does their work for them at a much higher cost.
Also treasurer, that is another shared position.
That's right.
Sorry.
Absolutely. And that there currently is a labor shortage. And so this was something we talked for hours about and looked at all of the data. And I think, again, with George's efficiency with a spreadsheet, it's really been able for us to come up with a presentation that will show our justification for what we're proposing, and also that this has not been done in our town for almost a decade. It was 2013 was the last time we did this, and we have fallen short, is what we discovered. So George.
Yeah, before we move on, does anybody have any questions about anything on this list or any comments about anything on this list before we move? Okay.
Yeah, if you guys could use the raised hand feature, it's much easier for me to see. That would be great. Thanks, Bob. You're on.
Yeah, hi, George. I'm just concerned, or I want, what occurs to me is that, doing cost comparisons with other towns, for example, with towns that contract some of these services, that I don't know how thorough you were with examining the cost. I mean, because contract services represent some savings to employers because they don't have the overheads such as, retirement, medical benefits and pension and so forth. So, and insurance costs and holidays and a lot of other aspects which are included in full-time positions and are not counted as salary per se or as compensation even. So I just wonder if you examine all those kind of nuances in the data.
Yeah, well, they're broken out and they are highlighted, but in municipal government, these positions, you can't hire them as non-employees. You can hire a firm to do the work for you. And that's what we're referring to when we're talking about contracted. We're not talking about Ryan leaving as treasurer, somebody else coming in, we just pay them as a contractor. We can't do that by law. They're employees, but we can hire a firm to do our treasury work for us. And the best example of that is the very first row is the accountant. Most of the towns contract out to the FERCog, and the FERCog bills $71 an hour. If you pull up the wage and tax summary or the wage and salary summary that we received and you look at the accountant positions, you're going to see a lot of towns have contracted. In fact, to answer your question, I have many blanks here because of all these towns here are actually contracting at $71 an hour. There's only 5 towns, including ourselves, that actually are paying somebody on their payroll. And you can see, I don't know what's up with Heath, but you can see there's only 4 here. So our average is based on those 4. So in reality, contracted in this context is not going to be cheaper than, it depends on the price, of course. At $71, I believe it is not. If we could contract at $30, it might be because of the benefits we wouldn't pay, especially for positions that are over, what is it, Becky, 20 hours?
Yeah, they have to be over 20 hours.
But in reality, their account position was really the only one that had those. Maybe some of these had a few, I don't recall, but I did not pick those up and I did not use those because they were contracting to the FERCog at $71.
Yeah, well, George, I don't want to quibble, but if you have all these blank spaces in your data, it would be interesting to me to know what the annual cost is, not the hourly, but the annual cost for the service, because that would be a legitimate comparison. Hourly rates also depend on the number of hours that individual ends up working for the town over a course of a year. So, and I really am concerned about the overall long-term costs of having an employee at that rate, because, after all, their pension is going to be based on that rate too. And, we're looking at 27% increase for a couple of these positions. And well,
Nobody's at 27.
We haven't even started talking about those numbers yet. But the example I showed for the accountant is really an unusual
Well, it's also the same for treasurer. There are a lot of towns that we didn't use because
for the treasurer, there's a lot of towns that have a combined treasurer collector position.
Yeah.
But before we hired our current assessor, we were really facing the fact that we were not getting qualified applicants and that we were looking at hiring a company to do this at a much higher cost. And thank God we didn't have to, because we found an assessor.
I think, sure, I was just going to chime in, and I think when we think of contracted services, the fees that a good company who contracts services will add in the benefits they're paying their employee into the cost of that contracted. So we're still paying benefits, just not as an employee of Shutesbury, but would be in a contract. They would contract in a
company.
total
We're also
compensation
adding in.
fee. Yeah.
And in a private company, that would also include profit.
Right. So it's actually higher in some cases for contracted, because you still are paying all that, just not
I think
directly.
Franklin County, and in Franklin County's case, it's probably administrative fees.
Right.
I think that's why it's $71. well, anyways, so before we get into the debate about this, let's just show you what we're presenting here. This is what everybody is currently making. So we did this analysis, by the way, on all positions in town. What we have here are 8 positions that came up way short from the averages for the county, Franklin County. And so here's what they're currently paid in this fiscal year per hour, number of hours they work per week. This is what we're proposing to increase their salaries to. It's made up of 2 pieces. We, position by position, looked at the Franklin County average. We also calculated the averages without the highs and the lows. So I've got a formula in here that finds the highest number and the lowest number across the towns and excludes those in the calculation. Because some towns, like who was Keith, I think it was an anomaly on the accountant. And so you get a low anomaly, you get a high anomaly. This gives us a slightly better average. But what we found was it really wasn't that wildly different. You know, these numbers weren't really that divergent from these numbers. So that was good. And then we have the median. So we had both. And so for each position, we just looked and compared. Now this column is an interesting column because, well, let me go back. So after looking at these numbers and that number and having discussions about all the things going on with the accounting position, we chose to propose an amount of $26.92. And we also have the COLA for 2.42%, 2.4% for FY23. This survey, these numbers on the right are all based on the current year. So we wanted to make sure after we aligned them that we weren't already a year behind. So we added 2% to their salary, of their salary to the proposed number. Yeah, this number plus 2%, we come up with this number. That's what we feel is a good rate for the accountant, given what we're seeing the other towns pay. Now, in the accountant's case, it's a pretty big jump. To go to this number would have been too far. This column right here is calculated, got to remind myself. How is that calculated? That's the amount if we went with the average. That's what the annual increase in that budget line would be. So we realized that in this case, it's just too far to go in 1 year. So we're going to this number. The impact on our budget next year will be an increase in that line of $2,551. So in each of these cases, this is what they're paid. This is what we're proposing that their new rate be. This is how we get their rate. Our proposed rate adjusted for 1 year inflation, and then, or COLA. And this shows the increase from here to there. That's the increase. That's how much their budget, their line will go up in our budget for FY23. These numbers add up to $27,984. That's what we're asking for. And that's made up of 2 pieces. It's made of the proposed amounts. When you calculate this increase based on just the proposed amounts, if I took these proposed out, these rates all lower to these numbers. And when I add this up, I get 21,925. So that's this number here. If I put those back in, then this number is now 27,984. And so the effect of the COLA is $6,000 for these 8 positions. And then our proposal is really to increase them by 21,900. The point is that's important here is if we didn't change these rates, be aware that the COLA for all these positions would be somewhere in the 6,000 range, probably slightly below 6,000, but it would be below 6,000. So what we're asking to increase our budget is 21,925 ultimately is the effect of this proposal. Let's call it 22,000 is the effect of this proposal. Does that make sense to everybody? Oh, and by the way, just as a point of reference, that's our FY22 budget. This proposed amount is 1/3 of 1% of our overall budget. In total, it's 0.42% of our overall budget.
Okay, so I will manage the questions here. I think, Bob, I saw your hand first, April, and then AJ.
Hey, George, I just want to make a point that I think it's important for us to really see a good comparison. And I really appreciate your work, very clear and very logical, and thank you. But I also think there's one thing missing in this analysis, which is the hours per week comparison from other towns, because that's really ultimately what it comes down to, is the cost for the service. So the hourly rate might be significantly lower in Shutesbury, but the number of hours might be higher, for example. And I think that would be a useful thing to incorporate into your spreadsheet to do a complete kind of comparison with other towns, because, or for example, last year we increased the number of hours that the accountant would be paid from what it had been in the past. I have no idea. He might work less hours than another town's accountant, but it's certainly useful information to have if we could incorporate it into your analysis. I think it would make it more it would make it more legitimate, if you will. I mean, not that it's not legitimate, but it would give us a clear comparison between our town and other towns.
Yeah, I don't know. We didn't talk about that really. I'm not sure how I would even do that. I mean, convert everybody to salaries. If you look at the wage and salary survey that we get from Franklin County, it's not easy to work with. And towns report things in many different ways. And so I don't know if that would make that much of a difference. The good news is we pick towns that are relatively our size. I mean, all the towns in Franklin County are pretty close to each other in size. And so these numbers of hours are actually very consistent with what a lot of other towns have. We can look at that, Bob. We can certainly talk about that as a committee. It's not up to me alone. We all have to look at that and see if there's a way for us to incorporate those. But I think our logic, and personnel board, please chime in. Our logic is when people are looking for a job, they're thinking about their dollars per hour. A lot of these towns are paid dollars per hour. A lot of these positions are paid by the hour. So for us, and given the data that we had, that hourly rate was really the easiest way for us to manage this analysis, if you will. Bob, we'll talk about it at our next meeting.
Thanks.
Okay, April?
Well, just as an aside, my experience with with our town employees is that they are often working more than the hours that they're being paid for. I mean, that is not unusual. But I also just wanted to point out that the rationale for we talked a lot about whether or not, given these proposed increases to help align with the market, whether or not to include the COLA, and we decided that we absolutely had to, otherwise we continue to be behind. And so that was our rationale for that.
Okay, I just want to point out we're kind of over on the agenda, so I'll take a couple more questions and then I want to talk about process too. AJ?
Okay, so this might take too long to answer given where we are in the meeting, but it wasn't clear to me what I'm sure there's a rationale for why we're absorbing kind of the full bridge between what employees are currently being paid and what the Franklin County average was for certain positions and not for others. So I don't know, is that like, can you briefly give us some sense of what the rationale was? Like I'm even looking at the top two. I mean, it's clear that we're making a much larger step towards the Franklin County average for the administrative assessor versus the accountant. So what could you just, is there anything you could tell us?
I think I can answer that, seeing how I've been doing all the talking. We looked at each individual position and talked about each one independent of all the others. Our first thought was, well, let's give everybody average. What does that look like? Well, that's not going to work. It added up to $37,000. And the jumps for some people were just much too great. It didn't seem appropriate to push everybody up at those levels. We took into account a number of factors. How specialized the job is, like an administrative assessor is a very unique job, and you're not going to get people in private industry who can walk in and just become assessors in our town. And then in the case of the accountant, because you mentioned the first two, it was just too far to go. Like I said, remember this number, this is what it would take this is what the increase in the budget would be for their average, for the average.
So I guess the point is it's not a numerical formula. There was an extensive discussion about each of these roles. Okay, I understand.
Okay, thanks. Susie?
And so this group of figures came to 27,984, and the other number of 37,785 is the cost of everybody there and the COLA for the rest of the people. Is that right?
That's this number right here. Actually, that's before the COLA. So if I highlight this row, these columns here, 37,785, that's if we paid our employees, these employees, the Franklin County average, their line items for fiscal 23 would go up by 37,785 in total. That's before applying the 2.4%. Because these averages are based on the current fiscal year, not this year plus the COLA.
They're actually FY21.
The survey that we got in December?
Right, because it was based on last year's numbers and it's-
They collect the data from FY21. That's why we add the COLA.
Forgot about that.
So I guess I'm confused. Where is the 37,785 that April mentioned when the discussion started? Where is that number? I don't remember.
Susie, it's the first green column is the hourly rate. And when you multiply it out where George just highlighted, it's the yellow, I don't know what color that is for everybody else, but it's pink.
Rose, let's call it rose.
Rose.
Pink rose.
So that's the amount it would be from the current hourly rate to the first green column. That's how much of an increase that one line would have on each budget. And when you add them up, you get the 37,785. Does that make sense, Susie? So it's the current, the first blue column, to bring up the numbers to the first green column, which is the average we found. And this is what the total would be to increase, say, the accountant from 2430 to 3581.
Okay.
Yeah, basically if you look at this formula right here, it's basically taking this, subtracting that, right. And then it's multiplying it times the hours they work and times 52. And that's how much we would have to increase their budget in fiscal 23 from fiscal 22 to pay them the state average.
So so there's another number that's not present here, which is the cost of everybody getting the COLA and this adjustment, right? That number's not on this chart.
Yeah, that's right. This 37,785 is before the COLA.
Before the COLA for the balance of town employees, is that right?
Yes.
No, the average, just these 8 employees for the average amount equals the 37,785.
Right. I get that. But so then above and beyond that, there's the COLA for
the rest of the
everybody else.
employees.
Yes. That's what I was.
Sorry.
I just want to throw it out real quick. Another, it's kind of anecdotal, but yesterday when we talked about this is Franklin County, but many of our employees are on the edge of Hampshire County. And Hampden County's not that far away either. Belchertown, Granby, or well, actually, those are Hampshire.
Those are Hampshire.
But Franklin County, there seems to be agreement in our committee that Franklin County is probably not the highest paid county in the area. And so, we're aligning with Franklin County, but can they get paid more if they got jobs in Hadley, Granby, South Hadley? You know, so when we're talking about this, we're not even sure that we're competitive outside of our area, if for what it's worth. That is kind of a concern.
That's a good note, George, that it may be just, you know, be our county may not align completely with a market across county lines. You're right.
Yeah, Western
Good
Mass.
observation. Yeah.
But I think that's in line with the committee's overall objective to try to stay conservative, but still address the issue.
And be
So,
as practical as we can, knowing that we may be losing people or we need to attract people.
Or people that were using the retirement word in our finance committee meetings.
Yep.
Bob, you have your hand up, and then let's talk about process from here. Bob, you're on mute.
Make a quick point. I'll make it brief. Thank you. First of all, if you have this method, you have a tendency, once we incorporate these changes, if we do so, then all of a sudden we will raise the average in that process. So it has a tendency to push wages up to use this method because average is always the goal. And then so that just raises average and ad infinitum. But the other point I want to make is that it's really important to look at the cost of an employee. And we don't get that from this spreadsheet because, you know, the accountant, for example, keep talking about that. There's only 4 towns whose data we're using here. But if there's a contracted services from the county, we don't have to buy the software. We don't have to buy the office. We don't have to buy the phone. We don't have to buy the OPEB and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of things involved in hiring that employee and that we can't see here. And so I think personally, I'd like to try to look at that more closely. I know you've done a lot of work on your committee, but I think we still could stand to see some more study of this because it's complicated, as you've pointed out.
Okay, so I'm not clear about what the expectation was if we were looking to vote this evening, or if in fact this is all new information and a lot to absorb. So you know, we can take a little bit of time and do this. We obviously don't have a lot of time. We do have town meeting coming up. But I guess I want to hear from the different committees about whether or not the expectation is that we would vote tonight, or if this would be deferred to the next meeting, and we have another joint meeting on March 15th.
So Rita, just to partly answer that question, historically, once it's presented, historically, we have voted on it, or usually we're duking it out a little bit more, you know, a little bit more as a three committee group, but that's just a historical reference.
Yeah, and that was more when we were doing cost of living as opposed to a
Market
fairly
realignment.
significant realignment, which is big.
I don't disagree.
So
would it make sense for at least the committees to vote on the COLA, to have that set as a place to start, if people want to review further the work that we've done?
yeah, I would be comfortable with that. Any other select board members? Maybe
I'm okay.
I'll start with you guys, how you're feeling about, do we do the whole?
I could personally I could go either way. I mean, frankly, the COLA is certainly a place to start. It seems to me this is we're still paying people less than everybody else, as far as I can tell, no matter how we cut the cake and what, you know, we are, even with relatively significant raises, so I just think we should do it. Bite the bullet and do it. That's what I'd say. But I'm okay with waiting too. If we want to do more research on it, that's fine too.
Melissa?
I've been embroiled with this with the
Yeah.
personnel board, so I could vote either way as well.
Okay.
Having looked at this multiple times, so that, yeah, that's just where I am.
Sure. Personnel board, obviously you guys are making this proposal, so it's been thoroughly reviewed by you, and I see Jim didn't join us, but the finance committee, where are you guys?
I think the COLA can be voted on tonight by the finance committee. I mean, George shared at least the bottom line update at our last meeting, and we certainly had a lot of conversation about the methodology last year. So the market alignment, I don't know. I'm curious if other folks feel like that requires more study or.
Anybody else from the finance committee? Susie and then Bob.
I would like to vote on the COLA right now. I also think that these are volunteers, and crunching data could kind of go on endlessly. And so I'm not interested in asking a committee to break this down more, but I think our finance committee might want to look at the chart a little bit. So I'd go for the COLA right now, and maybe more time for us to look at the chart and do it quickly.
Okay. Bob, and then we'll.
Yeah, I want to say we all approved of this COLA method last year. My impression was that we would be discussing the COLA tonight, but this is the first time I've laid eyes on this so-called market alignment spreadsheet, and I would like to have more time to study it personally before I voted on it, because I'd like to look into it some more and maybe discuss it with full finance committee meeting before we do.
When does the finance committee meet again?
A week from tonight.
Okay. So why don't we start with the COLA, and do I hear a motion to approve the COLA? I'll start with the select board and then let the other boards vote. So do I hear him, or can I just do a?
You can do a
single
motion
vote
if you
for
want,
everybody?
sure. Go.
Okay. So do a motion that that we approve the COLA, is it 2.41?
4.2.
4.2, okay. As recommended by the personnel committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, so I'm just gonna I'll go through all the committees. Is that okay? All right, so please signify by saying aye if you agree with the motion. So Bob?
Bob, do you want me to vote now? Is that it?
Yeah, but and just say your name and your vote.
Bob Groves, I vote aye to support the motion.
Arvanitis, aye.
Chartier,
Stein, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Ross, Peg?
the person, actually, we've already voted it. Do we need to vote it again? Because it's
Yeah.
your meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor of the COLA at on the personnel committee at 2.42%?
Arvanitis, aye.
Chartier, aye.
Stein, aye.
Ross, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Would it be helpful, I hate to and volunteer us to another meeting, but for us to attend the finance committee meeting next week when you go through your discussion?
Well, George will be there, correct?
Oh, right. George and Melody.
Melody.
Yeah, Melody will be there as well.
That's
And
right.
Becky.
And Becky.
All right.
Well-
Eric, did you get your vote registered? I might have missed it in them.
No, I didn't, but I'll stalk her eye if you want it.
So, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody else who did not?
Errol.
Errol.
We need your vote, Rita.
Oh, Farrell. Aye.
See,
There you go. Okay. All right. And then, so the Finance Committee will be meeting next week and maybe further discuss the market alignment. And then can we take this up at the final vote on the market alignment at the March 15th meeting?
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda.
Okay, I don't know, does that need to be another 3-board meeting, or can we just take the report that comes back from the Finance
It
Committee?
needs to be a 3-board meeting.
Okay,
When is the finance committee meeting next week? What
Tuesday
day?
night.
Tuesday. Okay.
Can we
okay,
adjourn the finance committee meeting now?
Well, no, I can't, I've got the screen here, so I'm looking for my hand and I can't figure out where I just want to say a lot of work went into this. There was a lot of subjectivity as well because of the different factors we talked about earlier. And we can analyze this to death, as Susie pointed out. If we come up with other methods, we could end up making the number larger. Whatever we do and whatever our conversations are, the numbers will be different, but I do not think they'll be materially different. And I don't think what we're proposing here is unreasonable compared to the numbers on the right. Yes, you should look at the wage and salary summaries, everybody who's going to be at next week's meeting, and see what's going on in the other towns, okay? And get a sense what you think they should be paid. I don't think that we're going to come up with a number that is substantially different from 27,985, 84. We on the personnel board have been consumed with this every
Yes.
meeting since November. So yeah, we can come up with different ways and different numbers. I just don't think it's going to be real productive to keep kicking this can around. And the fact of the matter is these positions are clearly underpaid. And you'll see that when, for those of you who take the time and look at the wage and tax, I keep calling it the wage and tax, the wage and salary survey.
Right.
That's my 2 cents.
George, I think we really appreciate all the work that the Personnel Committee, but this is new to a lot of us. We haven't seen it before. So I think, giving it just a little bit more time to absorb and look through these numbers is warranted.
And I believe that you will understand our logic. And, I think we've done a really good job.
Becky.
I think you've done
and
a great
then
job too, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out for people as you want to do your own research, Bob was asking for the hours for the positions. And I just wanted to point out there in the second column, the second number column from the left are the hours for each of the positions here. And another important factor is when the position is less than 20 hours, it's not benefited. There are no vacation or sick time or retirement benefits for anyone under the 20 hours.
So that's what we're looking at on the chart in front of us, is 3 out of 8 positions. The other thing is, does everybody have access to FERCog?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
George, can you send this spreadsheet? I don't think I got it from Jim.
Right.
Neither did I.
None of us.
No, I haven't sent it to anybody. We worked on this last night. The personnel
gotcha.
board completed this last night.
I see. Sorry, I thought you had said you.
No, that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. I can get it to the committee before next week's meeting.
Great.
George, would you number the columns across the top so we don't have to refer to them by titles? Oh, okay, up there is fine, good.
Well, actually, when I send it, you all have it and you'll all be looking at it electronically, right? Everybody has Excel on their computers?
Yeah.
Use these to reference this location. So that's cell E18.
I just realized an issue that I just wanted to share with everybody, and George, I'm sorry, it will impact the bottom line. I was just thinking about it. We have 2 equipment operators that this will impact. So the dollar amount, because no other positions do we have 2 of.
Ah,
The new number is 32,195. That's another 42,211 on top of this.
I'm glad we caught that.
Come again?
No, I'm glad we caught that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Becky.
Yeah, thanks, Becky.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks for
All
that.
right, I'll update this and I'll get this to the finance committee and the personnel board and we can.
yeah, thank you. That would be good.
Thank
to
you,
get that.
George.
Yeah, and to the select board too.
Okay, got it. Everybody in this
Thank you.
meeting, yeah. in these
Thank you,
3
George.
Yeah.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
George.
Yes.
Oh, I
Is,
need help. I didn't do it all myself.
Are the 2 committees that are here going to adjourn? Or
I'll make a motion, the finance committee adjourn.
Second,
Arvanitis,
aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Closure,
Personality.
aye. Thank you.
Good night,
Okay.
everyone.
Good night.
personnel
I
board?
Right.
make a motion that the personnel committee not resign.
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Retire for the evening.
Okay,
All those in
Arvanitis,
favor?
aye.
Okay.
Make peace in the eye.
Ross, I.
Stein, I.
And Melody.
I already said it. I always say after George because it's A and C.
Okay.
All right, good night.
Good night,
Okay,
everybody.
good night. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. So let's see.
The
At 6:20, we were going to discuss the disclose. No, that was a necessary discussion. There's a disclosure request from the Concom chair, and Becky, if you want to just, Miriam's joined us.
Yeah, and I'll let Miriam explain most of it. I just want to say that there was, Miriam has a project that she's doing of her own that needs to go before the Concom. And in thorough diligence, she reached out to the Ethics Commission and wrote up a disclosure and is coming forward with a request to the Select Board to get permission to raise this issue with the Conservation Commission so that the commission may select another commissioner to assume the acting chair role during proceedings involving her project. And she's coming to the Select Board for the permission. And Miriam helped explain the logic to me. And so I'm gonna give a stab at it and then turn it over to Miriam for all corrections. So she explained that in a normal circumstance, if it's just a member of the committee, they can just recuse themselves, which
Right.
we've been familiar with doing that. But in this case, because she is the chair, she needs to make sure that another member chairs that portion of the meeting or chairs during that time. And because she was appointed by the Select Board, she needs to come to before the Select Board to ask for the permission to ask for an acting chair.
Permission to get permission. Okay. That is very convoluted, but I think I get it. Miriam, is there anything further that?
Well, yeah, there were 2 disclosures that I filed. One you don't have to act on, which is the 23B, which is just the appearance of a conflict of interest because with this project, I may work with contractors who also come before the Conservation Commission on behalf of applicants. And, you know, I have somebody who plows my driveway who might do excavation work in town. So this just is a disclosure of all of that. And there were some standards I had to meet to make it clear that there was no undue pressure or influence being exerted on any of these contractors because of my role. And so that disclosure, you don't have to do anything about. I just file it with you and then I can continue in my function on the commission. But in order to delegate, I need permission from you. That's why I did the 19B disclosure, which is an actual conflict of interest. And obviously I can't be dealing with a project that involves me personally. So I'm asking for that permission. You probably need to vote.
Okay. So Becky, I assume you have all that paperwork.
Yes, so I'll try to make a motion. So the select board makes a motion to give Miriam DeFont permission to raise this issue with the Conservation Commission so that the commission may select another commissioner to assume the acting chair role during proceedings involving my project, her project. Linda, would you like me to send this to you?
That'd be great.
Yeah, I will do that.
So
Okay.
I'll say so moved. Not repeating.
Okay, good, because I couldn't have done that. Do I hear a second? Eric, you're muted.
So no, yes, a second, but I'm also just assuming that that means you'd recuse yourself from voting as well as being
Oh,
the
absolutely.
chair, right?
I could only be
Okay.
able to function as an applicant.
Should that be in the motion?
Well, that's
motion doesn't-
I've already stated in my 19B that I'm fully recusing myself. So I don't think
Okay.
you don't
Okay.
make me recuse, I recuse.
Mhm. Okay. All right,
Okay.
any further discussion? So
The
all
only
those in
thing-
favor, yeah?
Well, the only thing I would add is that because I'm also kind of working closely with the land use clerk, I would have whoever is the acting chair take over that piece around helping her file whatever paperwork needs to be done.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So a motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Make peace O'Neill, aye.
Docker, aye.
Farrell, aye. Okay, good luck with your project, Miriam.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is just to briefly discuss the Energy Climate Change Committee. So we have had, we sort of waited till we have enough people who were interested in the committee, and there are a few people jumped on board right away, and then it kind of trickled in, and then finally we had an article and newsletter, and we got 7 people now who have indicated interest in being on the Energy Climate Change Committee. And I think it's a good mix of folks. Everybody has submitted something in writing. And what I'd like to do, if the other members are, select board members are in agreement, is to invite those folks to come to the March 15th meeting, there's 7 of them, so.
Is there 8?
Are there 8? I had 7 on my list.
Okay.
You have 8, Linda?
I do. I
That
have,
makes like, you want to give me the names and? then
yeah,
I'll-
I have Sanford Lewis.
Oh, that I didn't, where was, I don't. I
He
never
was the very first one. He came in December.
Did he say he wanted to be on the committee, who just wanted to be advisory? I
Oh,
thought
wait a
he
minute,
was
you're
just-
right. No, he's interested in monitoring.
Right.
Excuse me. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I'll take
so
him up. So
it's-
yeah, so 7.
Okay.
Yeah,
7, okay.
yeah.
So what we would do is invite them to come to the March 15th meeting. Everybody would have all of the, I believe everybody has their letters of interest. And so just, kind of go through and do appointments, because it would be great to get this committee launched. So if Melissa and Eric, if you're in agreement, that's what we would do. I'll put that on the agenda for the 15th.
Sounds
Okay.
good to me.
You good with that, Eric? Eric, are you going to be able to come on the 15th?
No, so I'm definitely good with it. No. I won't be here, but I mean, I really think if you had to vote, and I might be there if I can log
Okay.
on. I don't know
Okay.
where I'm going to be, but in any event, I would trust you to appoint anybody you wanted to appoint. I think would be fine.
Okay. All right, great. Good. Just want to go back to my agenda. So that's what we will do on the 15th. Next, we are going to talk about annual town meeting. I see that Paul Lyons has joined us. Paul, I'm not sure if you're here to
He's
talk
here
about
for the
the
town meeting.
town meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, we've had some initial discussion about kind of moving the town meeting out a little bit later so that we could have an outside meeting again. Right now, we were scheduled for the last Saturday in April, which would have been the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. Because of kind of a variety of reasons, including the fact of holding a meeting outside and kind of dealing with budget stuff, we're still moving along here and waiting on the library announcement that we would pick a day in May, and I believe May 21st was what the recommendation is for town meeting. And Paul, I guess first, does that work for you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So anything else we need to talk about for annual town meeting?
I just wanted to make sure that everyone is comfortable with repeating the general guidelines of the last two town meetings of holding the meeting outdoors under a tent and not attempting to meet at the school. And I'm pretty sure Gracie will jump on in just a minute. And I just wanted to alert everyone that she is building the calendar to get us to town meeting, and we'll be accepting nomination papers. And which are, that's a critical step in our annual town meeting process for the election. And I just wanted to get any feedback from Paul about holding another outdoor meeting. I know at one point he had raised the issue of electronic voting, but I don't believe that you were thinking of attempting that for this town meeting. But I just wanted to hear a little bit of what Paul's thinking, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with outdoor meetings. I think the last two that we had were pretty popular from, the feedback that I got, at least. I know a number of other towns are holding outdoor meetings again this year, and some of them are considering sticking with outdoor meetings, semi-permanently because they are so popular. So that's absolutely fine with me. I do want to broach the whole topic of alternative voting methodologies at some point, but certainly not before this coming town meeting. But I think that's probably going to be a lengthy process to really evaluate, those options and the cost and potential vendors if we went to electronic voting and so forth. So I would like to get that going sooner rather than later, but certainly not with the goal of having it ready for this coming town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Paul, as we had suggested about having a meeting with Grace and you and a couple of other folks just to talk about electronic voting and whether or not that's something we want to we want to research. So that would be, you know, everybody having clickers and all votes being then tabulated electronically. So a number of towns do that. I know Paul's done quite a bit of research, and I think, you know, we can certainly figure out whether or not that would work for Shutesbury, and do we need a town meeting vote for that or not? Did we determine with that our bylaw, we didn't need any changes to our town bylaw,
No,
right? Okay.
No, we don't have a bylaw that, you know, that basically lays out how we will vote. It's going to be an expensive enough proposition that I think, you know, it would be wise to bring it to the voters. I mean, it's going to have to be in the budget anyway.
Right.
But I think I suspect it would be popular, and as long as it's affordable, you know, I think it would probably be, you know, be looked on favorably. But certainly, I think in my opinion, it would be good to have a discussion about it, at least, you know, in relation to the line item in the budget, you know, once we actually propose it, if we do.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And a recommendation would be forthcoming, and that would be reviewed as part of the next fiscal year's budget process.
That's
Okay.
what I would assume. Yeah. Yeah. And just the last thing I want to say is that, you know, I'm not home, and I won't be until early April, but at that point, I'll be ready to jump right in and start participating in whatever preparations we have to make for the outdoor annual meeting.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Do we need do we take a vote? I'm trying to recall about having the meeting on May 21st. We did already. Okay. All right, great. So
And
we don't.
I think Grace just arrived.
We're done, Grace.
Hello.
You've taken care of everything. Yeah, so.
Do you want to just update us quick on the calendar?
Wait, sorry, can I get some context for what just happened? Sorry.
So Paul just reviewed that he's in favor of outdoor meeting for this year. Discussion about alternative voting, electronic voting is something that maybe will start this season, but he's not anticipating any changes for this annual town meeting. It needs a lot of research and probably a town meeting vote. And then just reiterating the date is May 21st.
Okay. So in regards to town meeting, definitely in favor of it being outside. Everyone I've spoken to about this, I've heard only good things. I haven't heard a single person. There may be people who do not like it, but I have not heard from any of them. Everyone who has mentioned it to me has said that they prefer it. I feel like it's kind of like having class outside. It just makes the whole thing a little bit easier for people. And I think we should keep it that way because people like it. In terms of where it is, if we had it at the school in one of the fields, that might be better because we could park in the parking lot instead of the common. And in terms of the date, I am highly supportive.
Wonderful.
And we have voted on the date, Linda. Confirmed that for us. Yeah.
It's set. It's set. The
Okay,
calendar
it's
is set. So the calendar, nomination papers need to be in on April 2nd at the latest, absolute latest. And sorry, I'm not going to say the last day to register to vote right now, just because I don't have the calendar in front of me and I'm not sure I'm remembering it 100% off the top of my head. But I will send out a town announce very soon with all the information.
Great. Good. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Paul, anything else just from the moderator's perspective?
No, I mean, I guess the other thing that maybe I'll mention is that you're probably aware that in our town, I did ask people if they had thoughts about why they or others don't attend town meeting or are not happy with town meeting to get in touch with me. I have received probably about 10 responses or so at this point. Some people have a lot to say. Some people have some, really good insight. I'm thinking that I may put out one more request, maybe even on Nextdoor, just to remind people, that I do welcome additional input because I do take it seriously, and I want to at some point talk about, what change we might make to make town meeting more welcoming to people.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. Anything else, or should we move on?
I just had a quick,
yeah.
quick question about this. Was when we say meeting outside, are we talking about meeting with masks? And well, was that where it's implying that or saying that, or have to decide that, or who decides that, or whatever?
I think that would be a consultation with the Board of Health, right?
Yes.
That's my take on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And probably closer to the date of town meeting.
Yeah.
And just very briefly, in terms of Paul's idea about the electronic voting, would that just be for people at the town meeting physically there, or the idea is that people could vote?
That is a bigger conversation, and we should wait to have that.
Right. I just want to know that question.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
it's only people there.
No, wait. Town meeting is not the election. These are two completely separate events. So I want to be really, really clear about that distinction.
I think we understand that, but yes, the electronic voting is what we're talking about. It's not the elections. It's about voting at town meeting.
The floor of town meeting.
The floor of town meeting. Using a clicker, being in person and voting at town meeting.
With a clicker while sitting at the town meeting.
Yes,
that's who would be
correct.
voting.
That is correct.
Okay, that's all right. Now I understand what the general idea is. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that there's no proposal, on the table.
No, I know that. I know.
I suspect, I was actually hoping that we might, have, a committee formed or something before word started getting out that we're even considering it, because I think, people may start, commenting about it, a little prematurely. So anyway, it's out there now as of this evening. So, we'll see what happens.
I've been dealing with misinformation and disinformation related to elections and voting for going on 3 years now.
Since you started, I'm sure.
So yeah, I definitely think we should be very, very careful about letting us, Paul and me, give you guys information before we start any conversations about it, so that we can all be on the same page.
Okay. So I just want to move along.
The only other thing I would just say, Rita, I think Mark Rivers is here, and I bet he's here for the Lake Wyola thing, which we've already decided.
Oh,
so just,
I'm sorry,
you
Mark.
might want to check in and see if that's true.
Okay, Mark.
Hi, yeah, that's what I was here for that.
So thanks for pointing that out, Eric. We did already appoint Art Keen. We had a gap in our agenda earlier, so Art Keen has been appointed to the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay. All righty. All right.
I'm gonna log off if that's okay.
Yeah,
if
okay,
you guys
sure,
don't need
of
me
course.
anymore.
Yeah, no,
All right.
thanks, Grace.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Grace.
Good
night, Grace.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Okay, so at a meeting a while back, we talked about looking at the building committee charge and maybe updating the charge of the building committee. So I've done a little bit of research, and with Becky's help, and actually Grace doing some checking too. And we have a town bylaw that established the town buildings committee that was done in passed in 1988. And it's very basic and doesn't, just doesn't provide a whole lot of guidance as to what the town building committees' roles and responsibilities are. So I've taken it upon myself to start to do an outline with the thought that what we could do is propose something to town meeting, have an article on town meeting to amend that bylaw to make it much more detailed and roles and responsibilities, terms, that sort of thing. Rather than this, since we have this bylaw, we should have a bylaw that is thorough and gives much better guidance than there'll be 3 members and they're in charge of town buildings. That's kind of what it says right now. So I'm working on that and promise that we will get something together. And I'm sorry you're not going to be at the next meeting, Eric, because we've got a lot of stuff going on. So
I'm going to try to be there.
Okay. Becky,
I may be there.
Okay. What is the deadline for articles for the warrant? If we're at May 21st,
I think we can, like the 3rd week in April.
Okay. All right. So we have some time. So maybe Eric, as we're putting the agenda together, we'll figure out we'll hold off on votes if we can to making sure you'll absolutely be there. And I guess we could put it on the agenda. If you're not there, we could defer to the following meeting. I don't know. We'll work that out. Because I think, there's some things I'd like for the full board to be discussing, particularly stuff that we're putting onto the annual town meeting warrant. So what I'd like to do, what I'm thinking about is to do some kind of a draft of an amendment to the existing bylaw, then get it to you, Melissa, and you, Eric. Then you can get comments back to Becky, and then she could compile those, do a rewrite, and then we could discuss it. Maybe we discuss it on the 15th and then vote on it at the following meeting. Does that make sense?
That's okay with me.
Okay, so the meeting following, I just want to make sure I have these dates right. So 15th, 22nd, is it the 29th then? Is March 29th?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so March 29th, and we don't have anything else, any other intervening meetings, right? Before the
No. I mean, before the 29th.
29th, yeah.
No.
Some weeks we've had like an extra
Not
meeting.
scheduled.
It got me totally off schedule.
I know, last week's meeting really threw it.
Yeah, it did. Okay, all right. So maybe that's how we'll approach it. And then, because what I'd like to do is make sure that, if we're working on a new charge kind of amendment to the building committee, that we make sure that people who, members of the building committee are invited to that meeting. So, okay, great. That takes care
The
of
one
that.
thing I found ironic is on that May 7th, 1988 meeting, where we created the building committee in the bylaw, it says the building committee is in charge of all new construction. And about 2 items later on the agenda, they appointed a school building committee. I mean, we did, I was there. I assume I was there. And I'm sort of going, wait a minute. Well, you just appointed the committee who's in charge of all new construction, and you appointed another committee who's in charge of new construction, whatever.
So that was something that I talked to Becky about whether or not when we have a building committee, I thought we didn't do it at town meeting, but it sounds like at that town meeting, we did do it. We did appointed a committee.
We created the mechanism to appoint a school building committee.
On the warrant.
On the warrant, it was a warrant article.
That's what I thought I had remembered.
Article 15, Article 13, we created the building committee that was in charge of all new construction, among other things.
And then you took it away from them.
Two articles later, they were not in charge of the new school, apparently. So I don't know, whatever. Times have changed.
Okay, well, we have to think about that. We
Right.
also have to think about the process for, because now what we have done is we've had a separate building committee when we have a capital project, a significant capital project, and so.
Can I say one thing that in terms of when you're doing the rewrite, just it'll take 2 seconds. Just I think that's the major change I would see is that you would, I mean, you could key it to like the size of town budgets or something and say, if you know that the building committee is in charge of all new construction that's less than 5% of the annual budget or something. But in other words, if there's a big building being built, school, library, fire station, whatever it may be, that's a town a building committee for that particular building. That's not the
Right.
building committee.
That's
That's all.
a great.
Specialized building committee for that.
Yeah,
Right.
That's a
So
great
and I think
suggestion.
you could just key it to some percentage of the annual budget of the previous
Or-
town meeting or something. And
Or to a number, so something in excess of $250,000 and 500, we're talking millions when we're talking, big buildings, but we could use a number.
the only thing about a percentage is that's something that could travel down the road more easily than a number where who knows, we might be paying $250,000 for a loaf of bread in a couple of years for all we know.
But what happens
Okay.
if you write it, what happens if you write it this way? You use a number or a percentage of.
You could do
The
that too.
higher.
Whatever.
or-
That's
yeah,
whether
okay.
we're getting in the weeds here, but yeah.
Yeah, no,
That's the general
that's
idea.
actually, that's really helpful.
Yeah, thanks.
Great.
But I'm still kind of astonished that committees were appointed by town meeting, not the select board.
I remember you telling me it was town meeting. So you weren't
No,
town
they
administrator.
were,
then.
they're creating these,
Not
both
because
these
of-
committees were, I think, appointed by the moderator and the select board.
Select
Both,
board?
At town
both
meeting.
the school, no, not all, at the town meeting, we just approved we approved creation of the committee we didn't, and it will be appointed by the blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
It
okay.
didn't
Okay.
appoint them.
Okay,
Right.
so that's what I'm not keying into.
Yeah, just,
Right. Yeah, the
just appointed,
creation.
just created a mechanism for it to happen, that's all.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, well, that's great. So we will, I'll be working on a draft. We'll make sure that we have the building committee in attendance and something circulated. And then vote when all of us are available.
okay, thanks.
Great, thanks for your input. So we have a Council on Aging grant, Becky. So next item.
Yes, we do. Their annual grant has been received. I think I have it. Put up. It's a standard state contract. I believe it's is it 5,000 or 6,000.
I can say,
Okay, Linda, take it away.
yeah, only if you're okay with that, since as a
Sure,
member,
I'll try to put up the document while you speak.
as a member of the Council on Aging, we receive a standard amount of $6,000 a year. And what's really different this year is that the contract itself is for 10 years. Meaning that the amount of the Council on Aging contracts from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs are determined either by a flat fee of $12 per senior, or in the small towns of $6,000. So it won't change until there's another census. So this year, it's now going to be the contract end date is, we thought it was a mistake, but it is actually June 30th, 2032.
If there's no inflation clause, so it's just $6,000 with.
No, $6,000 a year
Next 10 years, okay,
for the next 10 years.
okay.
We better hope a loaf of bread doesn't cost $250,000.
Get the wheelbarrow for the money.
Really?
From the Weimar Republic, there's that famous photo.
Okay, thank you for that background information. So does this need to be signed by all
By
members?
the chair, by you.
By the
Linda.
chair, okay. All right, so I can come in tomorrow and sign that. Is there anything else, any other signatures that you're looking for from select board?
Just the vendor warrants and the payroll warrant.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is Linda. I'm going to put, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'll get it in your box before you come in, but there'll be a red folder circulating among your boxes that has thank you notes for the fire chief study committee and the former. I was going to wait till you set up the new energy committee, and then I'll make thank yous for that committee. Anyway, I'm interrupting because you have to vote.
Okay,
on the
so
ground.
do I hear a motion to accept the Council on Aging grant for $6,000 for the next 10 years?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Make peace, O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. Okay, so Becky, town administrator updates, and I'm glad your voice is back and that you're feeling better. Since we
Thank
weren't
you.
able to do these last week.
That's right, I wasn't. And thanks to a bowl of hot chili stew, I'm able to do it tonight because I almost lost it again. I just want to update the select board that we are again engaged on the police union contract. This is actually the 22 through 24 contract that we were unable to complete last year when we lost the steward, the union steward, when he took a position in Greenfield. Now that the new officers have been engaging with the union, we have a new steward, and we've had an initial meeting just on Monday to just reset where we were at with their requests. And we'll have another meeting next Wednesday. We hope to wrap it up as soon as possible and bring forward to the select board for signature. Recycling hauling bid, which you all are aware is out, will come due on the 10th of March next week, which we're all eager to find the results to because of the potential budget buster nature of this year's contract. There will be a pre-bid conference, which is being held on Thursday. It's an open meeting. It's on Zoom if any are interested in listening to the haulers. We're hoping that Casella, who is, and USA are both expected to be there. USA likely will propose what they did earlier on the contract that, on the bid that I already shared with you, that was close to 150,000. And we don't think they're going to change their requirements. So the hope is that Casella will give us a bid that includes backloading trucks, which the recycling committee has determined are really the best for Shutesbury, because the toters, while they can be more convenient in a residential situation, hauling them up and down a road such that Rita lives on could be very problematic. So we're hoping, the recycling committee is hoping that doesn't happen. Last Friday, way back 2 Fridays ago on the 18th, I met with Andrew Smith from EEO.
EEIO.
Say it again? EEIO. Yeah, you got it right. EEIO. He is A. He is the consultant for our area on the MVP grant. He reviewed the EOI letter that we submitted and came back with a number of recommendations. He felt it was very, very broad in nature, recognizing the intertwining of a lot of concepts that Michael had done, but urging us to focus in more fundamentally on a single topic. And he felt that even if we were to approach a topic like the lake area roads and stormwater upgrades, it could take from 2 to 5 years, so that he really felt we needed more detail and a more focus on an individual project. So those are ideas. I'll be talking more with Rita and Michael in the next couple of weeks and getting prepared to talk, in the RFP is coming out, I think on March 15th, and then that will have to be turned in April. So that's an ongoing project. I'm happy to report that things are going well in town hall and that we're almost through the winter. We haven't had any problems with our facilities this year. The highway department has done an excellent job keeping up with their equipment, which is always good news. And that this week our 2 Bridge Academy officers are in special vehicle training called EVOC. And once they complete this, they will be coming very close to the end of their bridge work with testing and, a number of tests to go, but they're probably within a month of completing their work after EVOC training. And that concludes my report for tonight.
Becky, I just had a question about the correspondence. I assume it went to all select board members from, this is State Highway Division
Was that
about
the dam
bridges.
repair?
No,
Right.
it was about the bridges.
I'm
About
sorry,
the bridges down on Cooleyville. And I scan, it's such a dense document and I was trying to read it on my phone, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I was just curious about what happens with those, because it was looking like there were deficiencies and things that needed to be improved, and sort of how do we deal with that? What does the highway department do? Or is this something that is not anything to be alarmed about?
I wouldn't be alarmed about it. I think we finally are in a process where they are actually looking at our bridges, which in fact, when I originally went for grant funding for the culvert down on Locks Pond, they had not done an inspection of the culvert at all. I had to draft them into it. We actually had to, the engineering firm assisted me in doing the first inspection on that culvert. And we were able then to get it into the DOT system. So the small bridge program has really ignited DOT's focus on our municipal bridges in town. So they are more attuned and they're alerting the towns, the highway department to that deficiency. If they're not saying that they highlighted a crack on the side of one of the bases. That bridge was built only 6 or 7 years ago and is in much better condition than the New Salem Bridge that is about 20 feet from it, that is underwater every year. So while they've highlighted it, it will enable us to get it repaired and to get grant money for the repair. So the inspection report is actually a tool to help us do that if Tim finds the work beyond him. But the whole construction of the bridge was Tim's design. The highway department put it together.
It's a beautiful bridge.
Yep, but you're right, Rita, it did highlight deficiencies, and Tim hadn't opened it yet. I alerted him to it this week, and I haven't had a chance to discuss it with him to get his feedback. So I'll share his feedback as soon as I get it.
Yeah.
But in fact, I think it's a hopeful sign that it gives us a leg up and credibility if we need help.
Right. So, because it seems like there's a small bridge grant program, right? So if we need to access that we have this report, and then where do we go with it?
Yeah, and that's in fact what is paying for the culvert on Locks Pond was the municipal small bridge program.
Okay.
That's where we received the $500,000 from.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the first bridge the one closest to the town hall? That's in Shutesbury,
Yeah.
and the other one's in New Salem, right? Isn't
Right.
that, or are they both in Shutesbury?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, the one that's underwater, that's all theirs. They are contending that all the land to our bridge is also New Salem's, but that's a new issue, and it came out after we were, Eric, you reported the air
You mean
conditioning.
between the two bridges? You mean that's all New Salem? Well, it makes sense.
Well, we don't
But the
agree.
boundary is, yeah, the
The
boundary
boundary
is.
has disappeared.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to figure it out without the boundary there. But they thought they had jurisdiction when there was a parked car down there, and there was a bit of a squabble about it. And so at this point, it's not fully resolved. We did say that if you do believe it's your responsibility, there's a couple of air conditioners.
Yeah, by the way, yeah, good.
And Becky, while I'm thinking about it, can you just give us an update on the larger school roof, not the gym roof, and kind of where things stand with the engineering on that?
Okay, that's been an issue that's been jumping around. I'm working on putting together a bid similar to the gym roof bid. Bob Groves has gone out, reached out to Gale Associates, an engineering firm, and gotten a tentative quote from them. I have reached out to Jeff Quackenbush, who gave positive feedback to the quote, and Gale Associates as a vendor. We do want to get at least a couple more quotes, and we don't have a full scope of work developed yet, which is of concern, and that's an essential piece that needs to get done to have an effective quote. And
is that something that FERCog, I know in the past they've helped us with developing scopes. Is that something that they could help with?
I think they could, but I think we can use what they did last year
okay,
as a template. It is fundamentally a simpler project. There's not as it's an asphalt roof compared to the engineering on the old roof. It's like an upside down roof where you've got cement pavers on the top. It was a much more complicated roof with internal drainage, but the other is more straightforward.
And the MSBA process is that how many years have we applied for
we have applied 4 times. I have to reach out again without Bruce here. I'm not sure if the new finance director will alert me to the opening of the new grant round. The old grant round, the last grant round was very late in June last year. Results didn't come back till November and December. We were not accepted. Natalie Blaze's office has asked for a bunch of information, and they said they were working with the MSBA to try to get them to come out and evaluate our roof. That has not yet happened, but we are hopeful it still might happen. It's a tough time to evaluate a roof with snow on it, but
yep,
hopefully it will happen.
Oh, Diane, I see you're still here. Is your hand up? No, maybe not still here. Okay. Anything else?
Last thing, I just want to report that the police study committee worked hard through the weekend, and thank you, Eric and Melissa, for joining
Yes,
in.
thank you. I had no idea. I was in bliss back here, not knowing.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
Ignorance is bliss, as they say.
That's what I was just gonna say. Ignorance was bliss.
Well, we had a
So
good
the-
process, so that.
There'll
got
be
done, though?
I'm sure there'll be payback.
Did it get done?
Yes, we've got them all in.
Thank you.
There's
Thank you very
2 or
much.
3 I have to go back and just double check, but other than that, they're all in. And
You know, the one thing occurred to me, if we ever do that again or another survey, I think we could probably do some of that electronically, couldn't we? Couldn't we send out
Yeah.
an email already and say, if you have to, pick 1, 2, 3, or all those things?
so there was
That's
some
what those things
concern.
like Survey Monkey and all that, they do all that stuff. And then you just push the button and you get the answer.
The problem
the
was the unique
group was
answers.
and the group was concerned about the security, or some of us were worried about the security of the survey.
Well,
So if
that's
you
a
have more than
reasonable
one
thing.
email address, if like me, you have 7, you could technically take the survey 7 times.
That's a very good point.
Because it's
Okay,
based
well, there you
on
go.
email address. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Unless you
well, that's-
collect people's data, like, their name or some other identifying data.
Yeah.
So
the
that's why it was
police-
done this way.
So the police study group is meeting this Thursday.
Yep.
All right, so thank you all. Thanks, Becky, and Eric, and Melissa, and Linda. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Thank you,
adjourn.
and so moved. No, you do it. No, you
All
go,
right,
Melissa.
I'll
You go.
second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Make peace, O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Carol, aye. And thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good
Bye.
dinner.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.